and welcome to class. This is part of AiArthritis's Knowledge is Empowerment patient-led classroom. And this is a project that we do at our organization to make sure that our peers, our fellow patients understand important issues that impact, that if we address them, we can impact and increase access to our treatments. And in this case, we're going to talk today in our class here about biosimilars. Also, this is part of our AiArthritis Voices 360 talk show. So we are also airing this as part of what we call a 360 it. And that means it's a spin-off conversation of other talk show episodes we have done on biosimilars. And so we'll make sure that we reference back to those as well. But today, we're going to focus specifically on some current issues in late 2024, moving into 2025, that we think patients, particularly those living in the United States, should know a little bit about. But the fact that we're international in scope and biosimilars affect everyone, we're also going to just touch on that. And then we're going to spin off into more conversations to break off to different countries, different areas that you feel we need to talk about just a little bit more in subsequent 360ths. So who do we have here at the table with me? Well, I'm going to let Ray introduce himself first, then I'm going to follow with an introduction of myself. Hey there, Ray.
Hi, Tiffany. I am Ray Papadnod. I am a patient advocate who's been working a lot on this topic over the years about biosimilars. I work with a number of different organizations, patient advocacy organizations, in the arthritis and autoimmune space and cancer and just a number of different diseases, helping patients in the U.S. and all over the world to become more educated about biosimilars and how these policies affect their access to care. And I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ray. Ray is also the project manager of this project in all of the public-facing classroom initiatives. So that means these classes in particular. So you'll see him behind the scenes as a teacher and more of these episodes as well. So my name is Tiffany Westridge Robertson. I am the CEO, original founder of AiArthritis, which is short for International Foundation, Autoimmune Autoinflammatory Arthritis. I live with non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis. And fun fact, I was a college teacher for about a decade. So I really enjoy helping co-lead these classrooms. And it's really important in this project that everything we're teaching you is from your peers. So we're really proud of that fact. And class is in session. So let's go ahead and get started here. I also want to give a shout out thanks to our supporters for the support behind making this possible. So thank you to Amgen, Genentech, AbbVie, and Bristol Myers Squibb. All right, class participation. We will provide with you a link to download our glossary. So these are glossary of terms where if there's something that we say along the lines that you're like, I'm not sure what that means, you can look at the glossary. You can also submit words that you hear that aren't on there and sign up for be official member here of this Knowledge is Empowerment, because you'll get more notifications on resources as they're created, more classes, field trips even, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure that you subscribe to be alerted for all the good stuff coming in the future for Knowledge is Empowerment. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ray to start us off here with our first education moment here on a little bit on what are biosimilars. Take it away, Ray.
Well, the first thing you have to know about biosimilars is that they are copies of biologic medicines. And you say, wait a second, what's a biologic medicine? A biologic medicine is a complex, large molecule. It's not a simple molecule like aspirin or something like that. And they're typically grown in these giant vats that almost look like what you might see in a brewery. And they're called bioreactors. And so these are engineered complex molecules. Monoclonal antibodies would be the fancy name for a lot of them. But these are used to treat AiArthritis diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, and gastrointestinal disease like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, and even cancer. So they're powerful medicines, and but they are quite expensive. And so when at some point they come up with these copies of them, and that are intended to compete on cost and bring costs down through competition and make savings for our health system and hopefully for patients. Now, you may say, well, that sounds like generics. Well, it does sound like generics, but they're not generics. Generics are identical, structurally identical copies of the original small molecule medicine. So I just take the recipe for Tylenol, and it's called acetaminophen. I can make this at home with my chemistry equipment, and I've got a generic copy. But you cannot do that with the technology that we have to make an exact duplicate of a biologic medicine. They're highly similar. They're very safe. They're very effective. They're FDA approved. They're fantastic, but they're just slightly different than the original version.
So thanks for that overview, Ray. And this is something that is an important topic for all of our patients all around the world, because many of us are now being either introduced initially as a first treatment, or maybe when our existing treatment has failed and it's time to move over. Totally acceptable to move on to a biosimilar because they are safe and effective. It's the issue of when we have continuity of care. It's the issue of when I'm already doing well on my treatment, when to switch, when not to switch. We also refer to non-medical switching, which Ray will tell us a little bit about too. But this is why we want to really educate you all, because there are some issues happening in the legislative space when it comes to making the decision, who makes the decision on when or if we are switched to a biosimilar. So that takes us to why I should care. And I'm going to move all through here and go ahead and take it away. Tell us a little bit more, Ray, about why we should care.
Well, because they're not 100% identical, again, safe and effective, but just a little different. The one that Tiffany might be on that works best to stabilize her condition might not be the same one that works best for me out of all these different products that are maybe all based on an original product that we call the reference product. And then one company will make a biosimilar, another one will make a biosimilar, and these are all safe and effective, but one just might work a little bit better. So when you're switching from one to the other, you might have a loss of treatment stability. Things might actually get a little better for you, or they might get a little worse. And it's very important that when these decisions are being made, that they're being made with the physician in the loop here. And physicians generally don't like to switch medicines unnecessarily. So, and I wanted to say that if you're starting with the reference product, you know, the original version, then switching to the biosimilar, okay, that is no worse than starting with biosimilar A and moving to biosimilar B, or vice versa. Or maybe you start on the biosimilar and you move to the reference, and that one's a little different for you. So there's nothing to say the biosimilars are inferior in any way. These are just concerns between switching to between any of these medicines that are all very similar, all safe, all effective, but one might work a little better for you.
Absolutely. And one of the stories that we're going to reference, and we're going to link to the story, and you'll see in the videos here in the PowerPoint that we're sharing for the class, all of these sort of references to videos. So we will send you to Deb's story, to other people's story of biosimilars, where you'll learn a little bit more about the switching and where the concern really lies in this continuity of care, especially when a patient is difficult to treat, or DT or D2T is the acronym for that. And these biosimilars, while the active ingredient may be as similar as possible, it's the inactive ingredients through the manufacturing process, and also the method of how, infusion versus the injection, a shot. It may have different preservatives in it. There's a lot of different things that we have to think about. And that's another reason why I know patients are concerned, especially when you're difficult to treat. I'm going to move over here to the next slide, which tells us a little bit more of what I just said. And we're going to turn it back over to Ray to talk about interchangeable biosimilars and what that means, because that's going to lead up to the policy. And one other thing that was on the previous one, just to reiterate too, is this non-medical switching, which is essentially the definition of you're being switched for non-medical reasons. So if you could just weigh in a little bit more about that, Ray, and then tell us about the interchangeable and what this is all about.
So If a physician decides, your physician knows your medical history, Tiffany, and or knows mine, and we see, oh, this thing works a little better, this thing doesn't work so well. Oh, you're finally stable. They may make a choice to switch you based on that medical history. That's medical switching. That is a prescriber switching you. Okay. This is different from a third party, such as an insurance company or a government health agency, or it could be private, could be public. They will switch you typically for reasons of cost or some deal they made with the manufacturer. And that's what we call non-medical switching. And that can be very concerning because you might have a disruption of your treatment stability there, and nobody wants that. So we have a concept in a biosimilar policy called interchangeable. All right. What is an interchangeable biosimilar? Now, it has a different meaning in the US than it does in Europe. So this is very confusing for a lot of folks. So I'll say in the US, this means that we will allow a third party to do a non-medical switch to a biosimilar if it's FDA says it's interchangeable. That means it's made and provided enough data to show that switching can go back and forth without disrupting treatment stability. It'll have the same safety, it'll have the same efficacy, it'll keep working, and there will be no problems could be expected. And that's what the FDA in the US calls that an interchangeable biosimilar. Now, if you go to Europe, the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, that controls drug safety over there, they say all of our biosimilars are interchangeable. But they clarify that this specifically means that the prescriber can do substitutions. So that would be if your doctor says, I'm going to put you on brand A or the biosimilar B or what have you, based on medical switching. That refers to medical switching, not non-medical switching. And if you throughout every country in Europe can have their own policy about non-medical switching, and it's typically banned in a large number of Western European advanced economies over there. Like, for example, the UK, that's banned to do third-party pharmacy level switching. You go over to Eastern Europe, it's poorer countries, and you might see this is what you can afford. This is what the government was able to get. Poland, Latvia, Estonia, and Russia, that's the case as well. If you go to some of the advanced countries like Denmark and Norway, they said, well, we'll only cover these, but you can get an exception if your physician says so. But generally speaking, the physicians are able to prescribe what works for you, the patient, and those are reimbursed, whether that's the originator, the biosimilar, or another biosimilar. So that's the policy difference between the meaning of interchangeable in the US and in European Union. I want to clarify that in the US, just like in Europe, the prescriber can substitute any biosimilar for its reference product. But only the FDA-approved interchangeable biosimilars with the extra data are allowed to be substituted by a third-party payer.
All right. And payer is insurance company, correct?
Insurance company, yes. or a government agency,
government.
a Medicaid, a government health plan.
I wanted to clarify that because we have had some of our classroom attendees question if payer meant them because they pay, and that makes total sense. I would think so. That's a term that often is about insurance companies, pharmacy managers, government authorities. So I just want to clarify that. Okay, we're going to dive in a little bit more to some stories, to some of these policy issues that Ray is going to give us some more information about. And that's what we're going to talk about here. So one of the things, as I mentioned, we have a whole library of patient stories, also short videos explaining what these topics are, why you should care, similar to what we were talking about in this class. So you definitely check out those associated videos to learn a little bit more. And also to hear stories from patients. It's so important that we hear if biosimilars are working, if they're not working. We do want to make sure that we preface by saying in the Deb's story, which you'll see on there and which we're going to talk about just briefly right now, she was switched to a biosimilar, but Deb is a very difficult to treat patient. She has had this since for like 40 years. She's been through every medication. And unfortunately, when she was switched to a biosimilar, it just simply didn't, there was something about it that didn't work for her. And so we have to assume it was her complexity of her disease. She has many, many comorbidities. And we don't know what in the biosimilars, those non-active ingredients too. Her immune system is very, very sensitive. And unfortunately, when she did go back to the original biologic, it didn't work. And that's always something that it's a rarity, but it does happen. And it did happen with Deb. So these are the kind of reasons why we just want to be careful when a doctor and a patient have that discussion, that they are the ones that decide on whether to switch and not to be non-medically switched. So I'm going to turn it over to Ray to just talk a little bit more about this interchangeability, what's happening, what can we do about it, what are these current laws that are happening. Can you give us a little bit more of a background of what we as patients should know about, and maybe then we can talk about how to get more involved?
Well, I'll say in the U.S., the state laws cover pharmacy substitution. And this is similar to what you see in Europe, where the member states determine what a pharmacist can substitute. So, but here in the U.S., all 50 states have passed a law that says only these interchangeable biosimilars that the FDA has determined as interchangeable due to that extra data, those are the only ones that can be substituted at the pharmacy level by, an insurer or a pharmacy benefit manager, or PBM as we call them. And the goal here is we want to ensure access to biosimilars. We want to get all those savings, but we don't want to jeopardize treatment stability for stable patients. So, for my case, psoriatic arthritis, you can get a flare if you change your medicines. So you don't want to have that unnecessarily due to switching for non-medical reasons. And this is usually a company that is trying to control costs, or switch to the most profitable medicine, and good for them, but not necessarily good for the patient. So now the FDA here in the U.S. is looking at, and I should say Congress is looking at a bill that would declare all biosimilars interchangeable. And some people say, oh, well, that's what it is in Europe, right? But as we know, that law refers to prescriber substitution, and we already have prescribers have the ability to substitute any biosimilar they want when they're prescribing right now.
And that's doctor, right? When you say
Yeah,
prescribe,
yes, the doctor, the
rheumatologist.
prescribing physician, or rheumatologist, oncologist, what have you. Yes. Okay, but this law is called the Biosimilar Red Tape Elimination Act, and that sounds good. Who doesn't want to cut unnecessary red tape and bureaucracy? But really, what it's doing is it's getting rid of those requirements to have that additional data that shows that safety and efficacy will not be affected if you're switched to a biosimilar. And some folks think that, hey, this aligns us with Europe, but as we know, that's just not true. That's not what's going on, at least in the advanced Western economies of Europe. So I think it's important that patients realize that and be aware. And physicians, when you ask them, should all biosimilars be interchangeable? They're absolutely not. It's something like 11% have said that they think that's a good idea. It's 9-1 against. So there's a lot of confusion out there. So it's important that patients know what interchangeability really means, and that they maintain control of their treatment decisions rather than having a third party do it for cost reasons.
That's really good information. And so, kind of as we wrap up class here, one of the things that we want to really just zero in on what can we do. And so one of the things, always one of the most important things, is patient stories. Also, I like to call them experiences, because your experience in this case, biosimilars, and specifically switching. So no matter where you are around the world, we really want to hear your stories. Have you switched to a biosimilar? So in particular, if you were on something and then you switched to, you were like doing well, and you switched those, and then maybe you tried to switch back. What happened? Those are stories that we really, really want to hear about. We also want to hear about your experiences. So as Ray was talking about, in different countries and different places, what interchangeable is different. And so we want to hear your perspectives and opinions. If you're in the United States and there's talk about legislation that could take your doctor out of the decision, how do you feel about that? And then if you're in Europe or other places where there is a different terminology, a different definition of interchangeability, how do you feel knowing that your doctor is involved? I think that's really important to collect. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, Ray, about things that we'd like to collect or anything else about specifically these bills or things that are happening that patients should know about.
Well, I think that if they sign up for the Knowledge is Empowerment website, and you will be updated as things come up, and you'll be very informed, which is always, they say, knowing is half the battle. So when you find,
Good. See how that title just wrapped right in there?
isn't that great? Yeah, I believe that it was G.I. Joe that said that first. But
Oh, well, I guess I ripped off G.I. Joe then.
anyhow, but yeah, that's a great way to go and stay informed, and you can follow us, and you can learn about how you can get active and what's the legislation that's going to come up and affect your access to care. So I think that's the first thing you could do is getting yourself informed.
Absolutely. I agree with that too. And then if you want to, you have the option to submit your stories via written stories so that we have that through our rant program, which will have you the link. And then if you want to, we also are collecting video stories for that library. So in the videos that we're referring that you see on our classroom slides, the goal is to get hundreds of video stories in addition to written stories. We can share that with legislators, with governments, with the people who are making these decisions about our access to treatments, because that's important that your voice, that all voices are heard in that. So there is the opportunity for both, but you start by a written rant. So you can go to our website at aiarthritis.org and then /rant. And there you'll see a check boxes that say, I'm submitting for this reason. So, pick the reason, and you can be anonymous. You don't have to tell us your name. You can tell us your name. You could also check the box to say, hey, I might be interested in doing a video. And then if in that case, we'll get back to you. And then while you're at the website, you also look at all of our programs. You'll find the Knowledge is Empowerment. And also, if you love what we do and all of the resources we're creating, please consider a donation as well. As although we do get support for this program, we also take things to the next level. We reach out to you. We help you navigate your experiences, sharing your stories, and all of that. Those types of things require us to collect donations to keep the good work and the mission work that we do. All right. Before we wrap up, we got to do a quiz, right? So at the end of our classes, these are very simple questions. So can you answer these questions? One, can you say yes or no to this? I feel I could briefly say what are biosimilars, what they are. If you say, yeah, I think I could, ding, you get a check. The next one, I feel I can provide at least one example why well, it says biosimilars may or may not be good for me. I think we should probably say why switching biosimilars may or may not be good for me. If you can say that, one reason why it may not be good to switch, ding, check. And then lastly, if you've heard, could you identify somebody else, your friend, a family member, somebody ranting about a situation of being switched to a biosimilar? Would you be able to say, hey, wait a minute, I understand. They're upset because they got switched and it wasn't necessarily what they and the doctor wanted. Ding! Then you can help us collect stories. And that's really one of the most important thing about this program is now that you are educated and you are knowledgeable, you have the ability to look around and collect more stories for us. So make sure you also send those people to the AiArthritis website to rant away, and then we'll get them connected with this program as well. So that's pretty much a wrap. Just make sure you go to our website, you sign up for this project. You'll be able to get behind the scenes field trips. We go places, we report back, you learn what we learn. You'll get all the opportunities to write letters, to get connected with legislators or your government, all peer-led by your fellow patients and caregivers. So we're going to say thank you from AiArthritis. Ray, thank you for teaching this class and look for more additional breakout AiArthritis Voices 360 talk show episodes from this episode. Check back. We'll be posting those soon.